If you enjoy emotional true stories that make you think, feel, and sometimes cry, make sure to subscribe, give this video a like, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new one. Family dinners weren't exactly warm events in our house. They were more like quiet performances, everyone playing their part, smiling just enough, laughing just loud enough, keeping the masks in place. That evening felt no different. The living room smelled faintly of rosemary chicken and floor polish, the same two scents my mother always relied on to create the illusion of comfort. As I stepped inside, her voice rang from the kitchen. "We're just about to eat, Alina. Come in." I paused for a second at the threshold, taking in the scene like it was a photograph I wasn't part of. My dad stood when he saw me, a little too slowly, like he wasn't sure whether to offer a hug or just nod. We went with the nod. Kayla was already at the table, scrolling through her phone with that signature look of practiced disinterest. She glanced up briefly, just enough to acknowledge. Me then went back to whatever teenage drama had replaced actual communication. My seat had already been pulled out. A glass of cranberry juice was waiting at my place, the kind I used to like when I was 15. No garnish, no ice, just plain room temperature juice. My mother smiled like it meant something. "You still drink cranberry, right?" I nodded, even though I hadn't touched it in over a year. This wasn't the moment to correct anyone. I sat down and we began eating. Chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans, the default menu of forced togetherness. "How's work?" my dad asked. "Still living in the same apartment?" my mom added. "Traffic's been awful lately," Kayla said without looking up. I responded politely, even chuckled when Kayla mentioned someone getting stuck in the revolving door at her office. It wasn't funny, but I knew how to play my part. The quiet one, the stable one, the one who didn't make waves. Halfway through my father's predictable rant about potholes and city planning, my phone buzzed in my lap. I glanced down, already expecting a group chat notification or a work reminder. Instead, it was a message from an unknown number. "Get up and leave now. Don't say anything to your parents." That was it. No emojis, no punctuation beyond firm periods. No name, just a directive that cut through the noise of the dinner like a blade. I read it twice. My mom was nodding along to something my dad said. Kayla was chewing slowly, still glued to her phone. Nothing seemed out of place, yet someone out there was warning me like I was in danger. I stayed still. It could have been a prank, a mistake, maybe even some scam. But no part of me believed that. My gut knew better, the kind of knowing you can't explain. "I'll be right back," I said casually, scooting my chair back. "Bathroom," I added, just in case. No one looked up. I climbed the stairs slowly, not because I was unsure, but because the weight in my chest made every step feel deliberate. The upstairs bathroom had a door that locked properly tight. No wiggle, no jamming. I shut it, locked it, sat on the edge of the tub. The message glared back at me from the screen. I called the number. It rang once. "You're still there?" a voice whispered. "Who is this?" "It's Logan. Kayla's ex, or maybe current." It was hard to keep track. What's going on? His voice was low, like he was in a place he shouldn't be. "You need to leave, Alina. Don't drink anything. Just get up and go." My eyes shifted to the image of the untouched cranberry juice in my mind. "I haven't had any good. Just trust me, please. Don't ask questions. Just leave." "What is this? Why are you even? They want something from you. I heard them talking. They're going to try something. You can't stay." "Try what?" There was silence. Then he said it, and I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I sat there on the edge of the tub, staring at the phone in my hand like it might start bleeding. My pulse roared in my ears. I hadn't heard that name in months. Logan. He wasn't the type to exaggerate. If he said something was wrong, I believed him. "What do they want?" I asked again. "You know how Kayla is," he said. She's reckless, and she's in trouble again. But this time, your parents are involved. Involved how? He hesitated. They need money. A lot of it. Fast. She made some bad bets. Gambling, I think. And they think you can fix it. I blinked, trying to process. So they invited me to dinner to what? Asked nicely. No, Alina, he said softly. They think you won't agree. So they're going to do it another way. What other way? Logan's voice dropped to a whisper. They're going to drug you, unlock your phone, use your fingerprint, and transfer what they need. My stomach twisted. The juice. I stared at the mental image of the glass on the table, plain cranberry juice, just like always. Familiar, harmless. But was it Alina? Logan's voice brought me back. Have you touched it? No. Then listen to me. Get out now. Just stand up and leave. Don't drink anything. Don't say anything. Just go. I felt my mouth go dry. Why are you even warning me? Because whatever she did, you don't deserve this, he said. And I couldn't stay quiet. My mother's voice. Everything okay, sweetheart? I forced my voice to sound normal. Yeah, just give me a sec. Silence. Then footsteps backing away. Alina. Logan whispered, you have to go now. I will, I said, ending the call. But I didn't go. Not yet. Instead, I opened a hidden app on my phone. No blinking light, no indicator, just clean background audio recording. I tapped the button and tucked the phone in my pocket. If they were really planning this, I needed proof. I walked back downstairs, careful not to tremble. Everyone was exactly where I left them. My chair still pulled out, the juice still untouched. I sat. Everything okay? My dad asked. Yeah, I said, just a bit lightheaded. My mom reached for the glass. Here, drink something. You look pale. I hesitated, then picked it up and smiled. Thanks, I said, lifting it slightly but not drinking, just letting it hover. I gave a small nod like I appreciated the gesture and set it back down without a sip. Kayla glanced at me, just for a second. Her eyes flicked to the glass, then to my hand. She knew I hadn't touched it. She turned her gaze back to her plate and said nothing. I think I'm just tired, I said. Might need to lie down for a bit. Of course, my mom said, her voice sweet as syrup. You can rest on the couch. We'll take care of everything. They helped me lie down like I was made of glass. The blanket was tucked around me. The lights dimmed. Then I closed my eyes. Not because I was tired, because I needed them to believe I was out. I let my breathing slow. I counted the seconds, and then I heard it. Okay, my dad replied. Let's do this quickly. I felt the pressure of fingers curling around my hand. My thumb lifted gently, pressed against the sensor. Click, my phone vibrated faintly. Unlocked, they didn't hesitate. No shame, no panic. Just quiet, focused coordination. We're in, Kayla said. I'm opening the banking app. How much? My mom asked. Not everything, my dad muttered. Just enough to cover it. I told you, she always blacks out, Kayla whispered. She won't remember. I kept breathing. Inhale, exhale. The sound of typing filled the room. Then Kayla said something that made my heart stop. It's asking for a code. What? She changed it. A pause. Try another app. Still locked. More silence. Then just put the phone back. Footsteps. My hand released. The couch creaked. I waited 10 seconds, 20, 30. Then I opened my eyes, sat up slowly. Sorry, I murmured. Don't know what that was. They all looked at me like I'd returned from the dead. You sure you're okay? My dad asked. I nodded, but my heart wasn't steady, because now I knew the truth. And the worst part? This wasn't desperation. It was planned, and I wasn't sure how far they were willing to go. I stood in the hallway, clutching my coat with hands that didn't feel like mine. Everything around me had the texture of a dream, familiar, but wrong. The framed family photos on the wall, the scent of lemon cleaner, Even the low hum of the refrigerator felt distant, disconnected. I had to get out. "I think I'll head home," I said, as casually as I could manage. "I've got work early tomorrow." No one stopped me. No one offered to walk me to the door. "Thanks for coming," my mother said softly, like nothing had happened. "Get home safe," my dad added, voice flat. Kayla didn't say a word. I nodded, my mouth curved into a smile I didn't feel. I opened the door, stepped into the night air, and didn't look back. Only when I reached my car and shut the door did I finally allow my body to shake. My hands trembled as I pressed the ignition button. I didn't drive off right away. I just sat there, engine humming beneath me, the same way my thoughts were vibrating inside my head. They had drugged the juice. They had tried to rob me together, and I had let them hug me goodbye. It would have worked if Logan hadn't warned me, if I had taken even a sip, if I hadn't started recording. I drove home in silence, windows up, music off. My apartment felt cold when I walked in, but not because of the temperature. The quiet was too deep, too thick. I turned on every light. I replayed the audio file, listened to every whisper, every key tap, every word. They were so calm. That part haunted me more than anything. They weren't angry. They weren't desperate. They were organized. At 2 a.m., I changed every password, email, banking, phone lock. I enabled biometric locks only I could override and added two-factor verification using an authenticator app, not SMS. I froze my credit, created a fraud alert, even called my bank and asked to flag any unusual activity. But the part that made me pause was what came next, the decision I never thought I'd have to make. I needed to go to the police. I didn't want to. What kind of person turns in their parents, their own sister? But what kind of parents do that to their daughter? What kind of sister poisons a drink? The next morning, I called in sick to work. Then I drove to the police station. It wasn't dramatic. No sirens, no tears. I parked, walked inside, waited behind someone disputing a traffic ticket, and finally stepped up to the glass window. "I need to report a crime," I said. The woman behind the counter blinked. "What kind?" "They drugged me," I replied, "and tried to steal from me." "Who did?" "My parents and my sister." She stopped blinking. That's when everything changed. They put me in a private room with an officer who asked calm, measured questions. I played the audio, showed my phone logs, banking records, the denied transaction attempts. He listened to it all. Not once did he interrupt. When it was done, he looked at me and asked, "Do you understand what they were trying to do?" I nodded. They wanted my money, and they didn't care how. He took notes, copied the files, told me this was serious. I knew that. I just didn't realize how serious until he read the charges aloud. Attempted fraud, administering a substance without consent, identity theft, biometric misuse, criminal conspiracy. They weren't just accusations, they were real. And they weren't just facing one charge, they were facing all of them. It felt like I'd stepped into someone else's story, like I was playing the lead in a psychological thriller I never auditioned for. But it was real, and now I had crossed a line. I had reported them. There was no going back. And yet, as I walked back to my car with a copy of the report in my hand, the most unsettling thought hit me. They would know it was me. They would retaliate. And I wasn't sure how far they'd go next. 2 days passed, I didn't sleep much. Every noise outside my apartment made me jump. A car door slamming, footsteps in the hallway. Even the wind rattling the windows felt personal, like someone was just outside, watching, waiting. I had done the right thing. That was what I kept telling myself over and over, like a chant. Then came the messages, all before noon. The first was from my mother. "Did you actually report your own family?" Before I could even process it, another one arrived. "What is wrong with you?" No names, no apologies, just sharp, cold disbelief. A voicemail came next from Kayla. Her voice cracked halfway through, but there was no apology there either. It was just a mistake. You made it worse than it had to be. Like I had turned something small into something monstrous. Then a call from my dad. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail anyway. You think the cops will fix this? You're going to destroy everything. You don't do this to your own people. That was the phrase that stayed with me. Your own people. Like I was a traitor to the tribe. Like blood was supposed to mean immunity. I sat at the edge of my bed, staring at the screen, waiting for the guilt to take root, but it never came. I felt tired, drained, but not guilty. I texted back once. You drugged me. You tried to rob me. That's not family. That's a felony. Then I blocked them all. Mom, Dad, Kayla. Group chats, emergency bypasses. Every thread of communication severed with a flick of my finger. Then I changed my phone number, rewrote my will, froze my credit again, and waited. But the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was tactical, strategic, the kind of silence that settles in when someone is regrouping. I tried to move forward, go back to work, smile during Zoom calls, laugh when coworkers cracked jokes, but my head wasn't in it. I opened the fridge one night and stood there, staring at the contents like they belonged to someone else. Yogurt, grapes, leftover soup, all bought by me, for me. I wasn't used to that. Everything in my life had always come with strings, with trade-offs, with that voice in the back of my head whispering, you owe them, be grateful. Now it was just me. No more guilt served as duty. No more financial ambushes masked as requests for help. No more pretending. And still, I couldn't breathe easy. Because I knew this wasn't over. The audio was undeniable. The logs matched perfectly with the time of the attempted transaction. The officer had said the evidence was clean, and yet, no arrests had been made. Not yet. Then one morning, I received an email from an unknown address. No subject line. Just 3 words. You ruined everything. No name, no signature. But I knew the cadence. I knew exactly who it was. And that's when I understood they didn't care about being caught. They only cared about being stopped. And now that I had stopped them, they were going to find another way in. I deleted the email without responding. But the words clung to my skin like smoke. You ruined everything. Not, we're sorry. Not, please forgive us. Just blame. Straight and sharp, I spent the next week looking over my shoulder. Not because I thought they'd show up, though a part of me couldn't rule that out, but because paranoia had woven itself into my routine. I started double-checking the locks, avoided the parking garage at night, left my curtains drawn even during the day. I wasn't afraid of being hurt. I was afraid of being dragged back into the quiet manipulation, the casual control, the expectations that had once felt like love but were really just leverage. I kept replaying the moment on the couch, my mother whispering, "Is she asleep?" Kayla murmuring, "She always blacks out." My father asking, "How much do we need?" That wasn't panic. That was strategy, and I had almost missed it. Until I started paying attention. That realization was the most painful part. This wasn't the first betrayal. It was just the first time I saw it. The patterns were all there, woven into my childhood like wallpaper. When we were kids and Kayla spent all her allowance in 2 days, I was expected to share mine. "Don't be selfish," they'd say. "She's your sister." In high school, when I got a job, they told me it was so inspiring, then turned around and asked me to cover Kayla's field trips, movie nights, and random indulgences. In college, when I was working 2 shifts and surviving on ramen, they still found a way to ask for just a little help with books. They called it love. They called it family, but it was always about control. I never set boundaries because I was never allowed to. The moment I tried, silence followed. The kind that screamed louder than any argument, that silence had returned. But this time, it was mine. And for the first time, I understood its power. No calls, no messages, no pressure. I was alone, but I wasn't being used. And I was starting to remember what peace actually felt like. Then came the call from Detective Hart. "We've processed the audio and the device logs," she said. "It's solid. We'll be filing charges this week." I thanked her, unsure what emotion I was supposed to feel. Relief, closure. It didn't feel like either. It just felt heavy. Later that night, I made a list, not of tasks, not of errands, of everything I'd done in my life to prove I was a good daughter, helping with chores without being asked, covering Kayla's mistakes, sending money I couldn't afford, pretending the sarcasm didn't sting, letting guilt shape every decision. There were 17 items before I stopped. I tore the paper in half, then in half again, and dropped it in the trash. No ceremony, no final declaration, just a quiet refusal to carry any of it forward. That weekend, I drove across town to a grocery store I'd never been to before, just to walk somewhere unfamiliar, just to feel the air in my lungs in a place that had no memories attached to it. I was halfway through the pasta aisle when I saw her, Kayla, wearing a store polo and restocking paper towels with her head down. She didn't see me, or maybe she did, and just didn't want to. I stood there for a moment, not out of pity, not out of curiosity, just stillness. Then I picked up a box of rigatoni and walked to the checkout. I didn't look back. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Because there, between the shelves, I saw it clearly for the first time. I had gotten out, and she was still in it. The rigatoni sat unopened on my kitchen counter for 3 days. I didn't cook. I barely ate. It wasn't that I was upset about seeing Kayla. I wasn't. I didn't feel anger or pity. I felt confirmation, quiet and ugly. I used to think that walking away from my family would feel like losing a limb. Instead, it felt like removing a weight I'd been trained to carry so long, I forgot it was optional. But even in freedom, there's grief, not for who they are, but for who I kept hoping they might become. I cleaned my apartment obsessively, sorted files that didn't need sorting, rearranged books I hadn't read in years. Every drawer became a distraction, every cabinet a place to deposit my restlessness. Then the letter arrived. No return address, just my name, handwritten in the same loopy cursive my mom used on every Christmas tag. I held it like it might explode. Part of me didn't want to open it, but I did. Inside was a single sheet of paper. We sold the house. The money's gone. Kayla's boyfriend left. She blames you. We all do. That was it. No greeting, no explanation. Just blame. Again folded like a gift I never asked for. I read it twice, then set it down. My hands didn't shake. My eyes didn't well up. I wasn't surprised. But there was something deeper in that moment. A clarity I hadn't expected. They weren't sorry. They weren't introspective. They were unraveling, and I was the easiest one to point at, but I didn't owe them my forgiveness. I didn't owe them access to my life just because we shared blood. I thought back to every holiday where I paid the bill without question. Every birthday where I sent a gift I couldn't afford. Every emergency phone call where you're all she has became a leash. And then I thought about the silence that followed when I said no. The absence wasn't just punishment, it was exposure. When I stopped giving, they stopped pretending. And that was the most honest thing they'd ever done. That night, I called Logan. I hadn't spoken to him since the night of the warning. He picked up on the second ring. "Alina," he said. No surprise. Just that same steady voice. "Thank you," I said. "You don't have to. I do. You didn't have to get involved, but you did, and it saved me." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I should have warned you sooner. You warned me in time." Another pause. Then he asked, "How are you holding up?" I wanted to say fine, but I didn't. "I'm rebuilding," I said instead. "Slowly, from nothing." "That's not nothing," he replied. That's freedom. I let that word sink in. Freedom. I'd always thought it looked like distance, like escape. But maybe it was something smaller, quieter, like not checking my phone in fear, like knowing no one could reach into my account while I slept, like making pasta because I wanted to, not because it was all I could afford. Logan and I talked for 20 minutes, not about Kayla, not about revenge, just about life, work, books, music, the things normal people talk about when their lives aren't burning. After the call, I stood in front of the stove and cooked the rigatoni. It was soft by the time I added butter and garlic, simple, uncomplicated mine. And as I sat at the table and took the first bite, I realized something. I wasn't waiting for an apology anymore. I wasn't waiting for closure. I was done waiting. But the world wasn't done with me yet. Because the next morning, a plain white envelope appeared under my door. No postage, no handwriting, just one item inside. A photograph. And in it, before I ever opened my eyes, I stared at the photograph for a long time, unable to move. It wasn't printed on cheap paper. It was glossy, high quality, almost professional, the kind of clarity that made it worse. Every detail was visible, my head resting on the arm of the couch, the blanket pulled over my legs, the dim light casting soft shadows on my face. I looked peaceful, completely still, just like they had wanted me. But what made my skin crawl wasn't the image itself. It was the angle. It had been taken from inside the house, not from a distance, not through a window. From the hallway, someone had stood there quiet. Patient hand captured the moment before they tried to rob me, and now they wanted me to know they had. I flipped the photo over. Nothing. No message, no handwriting. Just silence, again deliberate, suffocating silence. I stood up and locked every door and window in the apartment. Then I grabbed my phone and opened the recording app, checking the saved file again. Every word they said, every movement, it was all there. But not once had I heard a camera, not a click, not a sound, which meant whoever took the photo knew exactly what they were doing. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch with the lights on, clutching my phone like it was a weapon. Every creak in the floorboards upstairs felt like a threat. Every car that passed outside made me flinch. By morning, I felt hollow. But I wasn't going to let them scare me back into silence. I took the photo straight to Detective Hart. She studied it for a long time without saying a word. When she finally looked up, her expression had shifted. Her usual calm had cracked, just slightly. "This changes things," she said. "Who took it?" She shook her head. "We don't know. But the fact that they didn't use flash, didn't make a sound, and didn't get caught on your phone's mic tells me one thing: they're careful." Experienced. My throat went dry. "You think it was professional?" She hesitated. "I think someone wanted this moment documented. Maybe for leverage, maybe for proof, maybe just to scare you. It worked. We'll run it for prints," she said, "and check the timestamp metadata if there's any left." "But Alina," she paused, "this might escalate. It already has." I walked out of the station with a tightness in my chest that hadn't been there before. I wasn't just dealing with betrayal anymore. Now it was surveillance, intimidation, control of a new kind. At home, I sat at the kitchen table and tried to piece it all together. My parents had motive. Kayla had motive. But none of them had the skill to take a photo like that without leaving some kind of trail. Unless they'd asked someone else to do it. I thought about Logan. No, he'd warned me, risked everything by reaching out. He had nothing to gain from this, but someone else did. Someone I hadn't considered. That night, I went digging. Old texts, forgotten voicemails, account activity. I traced back every shared password I'd ever foolishly given to a family member. Bank, streaming, cloud storage. That's when I found it. An old shared folder Kayla and I had used in college, mostly filled with memes and screenshots. But one folder deeply buried was marked with a single word. Insurance. I clicked. Inside, 7 images. 6 were harmless, random screenshots. But the 7th, the same photograph, same night, same couch, same expression on my face. But this one was time-stamped, digitally signed, and it had been uploaded the morning before our family dinner. I leaned back. The breath knocked from my lungs. The photo had been taken in advance, before the dinner even started, before the juice was poured, before I'd even sat down, which meant they had rehearsed it, planned every detail, down to the moment I would fall asleep. And someone, maybe more than one of them, had been there the night before. In my home, I stared at the screen in silence. The timestamp didn't lie. The photo had been uploaded 12 hours before I walked into my parents' house for dinner, which meant someone had been inside my apartment, before I ever touched the juice, before I ever faked sleep. They had planned everything, down to the angle, down to the blanket, down to the moment they'd press my thumb against the sensor. My apartment was supposed to be safe. It was the first place I had ever lived alone. The only place I had ever paid for without help, without strings, without judgment. Now it felt like it had been stolen too. I grabbed my keys and walked every inch of the place, checking doors, windows, vents. Nothing was broken, no locks picked, no forced entry. Just access. I thought back to when I gave Kayla a copy of my spare key, years ago. Just in case, she'd said. I never got it back. Somewhere along the line, I'd invited my own betrayal inside. I changed the locks that afternoon, not just the front door, everything. New deadbolt, new mailbox, security camera, motion detectors. I was done waiting for someone to protect me. By the time the sun set, I had rebuilt my perimeter. But I knew the threat wasn't physical anymore. It was deeper. It was in the story they told themselves about me. The ungrateful daughter, the selfish sister, the traitor. I had ruined their plan, and they couldn't forgive that. The next day, I received a letter from the county court. Charges had been officially filed. Probation, restitution, no contact order, no jail time. But it was on record, permanent, public. I wasn't sure how that made me feel. There was no triumph in it, no closure. Just the end of a chapter I never asked to be written. Later that week, I bumped into Logan again, this time by design. We met at a quiet cafe across town. Neutral ground. He looked tired. So did I. How are you? He asked. I changed the locks, I said, stirring my coffee, installed cameras, alarm system. All of it good. I think they were in my apartment the night before the dinner. That photo, it wasn't taken during, it was before. He exhaled slowly. You think, Kayla? I don't think, I know. He looked away, jaw tight. I'm sorry. I nodded. Neither of us said anything for a while. Then I asked something I hadn't let myself ask before. Why did you warn me, Logan? Really? He met my eyes. Because I saw the planning, heard bits of it. I didn't think they'd actually go through with it. But when I realized they would, he paused. I couldn't watch you get swallowed by them. Not again. The word again hung in the air like smoke. We parted with a hug that didn't need to mean anything. Just quiet acknowledgement that we had both survived something we didn't deserve. That night, I cleaned out the last drawer in my apartment. Old notebooks, receipts, a shoebox with birthday cards from years ago, mostly signed in my mother's loopy cursive. I tossed them in the trash without opening them. Then I lit a single candle. Not for ritual, not for mourning, but to mark the end. The next morning, I submitted a formal name removal from all shared family accounts. Health insurance, emergency contact, beneficiaries. I untethered myself, paper by paper, click by click. One by one, I closed every door they'd ever used to reach me. And when it was done, I stood in the center of my apartment, alone, unafraid, free, and for the first time, I asked myself a new question. Not, what did they do to me? But what will I do now that they can't? If this story moved you in any way, don't forget to hit the like button. Leave a comment below. I read every single one, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. Your support helps us keep sharing voices that deserve to be heard.